Hello, welcome to episode 16 of Kelly's Roadhouse, the podcast where we recap every single Sweet Valley High book in the series. I'm Paula and I'm here with Rich.
Hello.
This fortnight we are covering Rags to Riches.
We are covering Rags to Riches, indeed.
And it's the most notes I think I've ever had.
It's a lot of notes.
For any episode we've done so far.
There's stuff going on every single page of this book. And this book has also made me think we should rename Kelly's Roadhouse. And I think we should rename it to the Alcohol and Social Gathering Shop. Because I think we need to be very specific about what we do in our shop.
Oh, yeah.
Like every shop in this goddamn book.
We'll get to that,
We'll get to it.
So, we've got a pink cover, which is better than the brown and the orange and the grey that we had recently.
We've had the most boring colours lately. It's nice to have a nice pastel pink.
Yeah, and we've got Roger on the front. Mm-hmm. And he looks like he's wearing like a jacket, a shirt, and then another shirt underneath.
Yeah, he's
layered up.
He looks like a child that's found his dad's wardrobe and just gone crazy.
And Jessica's standing behind him, looking at him like he's a piece of meat.
Which is basically how she... Well, I think she looks at him during this book like a dollar sign.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the dollar signs in her eyes.
You can see the dollar signs in her eyes, yeah, absolutely.
It says on the question on the front is, look who's after Roger Barrett.
Yes.
And it says on the back, Roger strikes it rich. No one would have guessed that Roger Barrett, the poorest boy in Sweet Valley, was really one of the Patmans, the wealthiest family in town. But when Roger's mother dies, the secret of his birth is revealed, and overnight he becomes a millionaire. Immediately, Jessica Wakefield sets her sights on Roger and his newfound wealth. Only one thing stands in her way. Olivia Davidson, Roger's longtime girlfriend. But not for long. Jessica has a surefire plan to take care of her.
Oh, yeah, she does. Now, this did not go the way I thought. I thought it was going to be...
kill her?
No. I thought it was going to be Lila that was after Roger.
Oh, yeah, because in the last book, Roger really was after Lila. And she,
well, this was a couple of books back, wasn't it? It was the play one. And she was treated him awful because he was a janitor. And I thought this book was going to be like, oh, now you're actually worthy of being with me. Yeah. Lila wants to be with her. So I was surprised it was Jessica, not Lila.
Yeah, that would have been quite good if it was Lila.
I guess they needed to give Jessica something to do. Because otherwise she would have done
Lila didn't really seem to care that much, surprisingly.
Lila was... Yeah, and I've even got it noted down because early on I thought Lila sounded like she was jealous. But then she's not. She's just over it. She just doesn't care.
So this book, maybe the first time that we've read so far, we don't open with any of the twins.
I have that as a note. I think this is, as far as the book series is concerned, this is the first time we've ever opened the book without the twins.
It's usually Jessica looking in the mirror.
Or even, if they're somewhere else, like when they were in hospital, it's always Liz is there or Jess is there. Not this time.
We open with Olivia and Roger in the Sweet Valley High cafeteria.
Yes.
And of course, the first thing they tell us is that Olivia's got frizzy hair.
Yep.
As usual. And all about her bohemian dress sense.
Oh, get used to talking about Olivia's dress sense in this book.
She's wearing an oversized cotton sweater belted with an Indian sash over a fringed skirt. And they're talking about how Roger still can't believe he's become a millionaire's son overnight.
Yes, his mother passed away 2 weeks ago or a few weeks ago, so this places this book a couple of weeks.
Apparently it's been a week, it said.
A week, okay, so this places this book a week after the last book we read.
And it's his first day back at school.
Yes, as a Patman now.
And Olivia thinks Roger's already started to look different.
Yeah, you get the impression that she's a bit worried that money might change Roger, and that he's quite different now.
Basically because he's got contact lenses and some new trousers.
Yeah. And I think she also feels a bit sad for him. She thinks he might be a bit lonely in the mansion and whatnot. But she's clearly quite insecure about this.
Yeah, but then she thinks, well, he's still the same old Roger and the Patmans won't change him.
Yeah.
So just to recap what happened at the end of the last book, his mother was ill with a heart condition. She needed surgery.
Yes.
And then Mr. Patman randomly offered to pay for that surgery.
Yes, and it was all very confusing, and no one knew why. And Bruce didn't know why. He just said, "Oh, he's being really charitable," and that's all it is. And then, of course, Lila pointed out that Roger's mum used to work in the factory, in the Patman factory, years ago, but that was long before Roger was born. And of course, that was clear setup because now we know that that's where she met Paul Patman.
Yeah. They fell in love, and she moved away when she found out she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Paul wanted to marry her, but he died before he could tell her.
Yeah, the book makes it clear that Paul was married to a woman who, quote, everyone hated. Everyone. And he planned to divorce her and be with Roger's mum, but then died in a plane accident.
Yeah. And it turns out he'd left everything he had to Roger. But Roger wasn't supposed to find out until he was 21, unless something happened to his mother.
Yes. So now Henry Patman has taken him in as a member of the family, and obviously now Bruce and Roger, same amount of money, same wealth.
Yeah. And Roger confesses to Olivia that he doesn't know how to be a Patman, and she wonders what place she'll have in his new life.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course the school's buzzing with rumours that Bruce resented Roger for moving into the Patman mansion, which is true, I think. Mm-hmm. And that Mrs. Patman can't bear the sight of him. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's like, the school wondering if Bruce resents Roger moving in is like, that's not even a question, is it? Obviously he does.
Yeah, because he hated him.
Well,
before.
Yeah, for one thing, you'd think he would anyway, probably somewhat resent suddenly having another member of your family. But also, Bruce hated Roger anyway, so it's like, of course
he was winding
does.
him up at the bar.
Well, he was always making fun of him for being poor, and now it's like, well, actually, I'm as rich as you are now. That's not going to go down well.
And Lila's still bitter about the whole janitor situation.
Yes, yes. Now, of course, as we said, Roger tried to... He was
besotted with Lila.
Besotted, yeah. But Lila was having none of it because he was a mere janitor.
And then when he won the Bart race, she was a little bit more interested. But he was with Olivia then, he didn't care.
Yeah, and I guess Lila gave up on him at that point.
And she tells Jess he still looks nerdy as ever.
Yeah.
And then we get the twin description. And this book, they've included dimples on left cheek, sun-streaked blonde hair, sparkling blue-green eyes, perfect size 6 figures, and matching gold lavaliers.
They hit everything in this book.
Yeah, they even mention that Liz always wears a watch as well.
And why does Liz always wear a watch?
Because she likes to be on time, and Jessica doesn't wear a watch because...
the party starts when Jessica arrives.
She gets there, yeah. So yeah, they're very detailed this time.
They are. They're very detailed not only about this, but about every character we see. We get the full description every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lila asks who Jessica's going to the party with, and then we find out the Patmans are welcoming Roger to the family by holding a formal dance at the country club, and it's going to be the social event of the year. Like, just to make him feel even more awkward. Mm-hmm. You know, his mum's just died, he's in a new family, and they're like, we're going to draw attention to you by having this massive posh party at the country club, which isn't going to be his kind of vibe at
I wouldn't
all.
have thought so. No. I mean, the amount of pressure on this kid right now is insane.
Yeah. And Jessica says she hasn't decided who she's going to take yet.
Yes.
It's like, I like the way she says she hasn't decided. Like,
it's
the guy
choice.
Doesn't get a say.
It's her choice.
She's just going to decide who she wants to go with.
Yeah, and of course she's saying this whilst looking over at Roger and Olivia being close.
Mm. Yeah, she watches them and she wonders what it would be like to go with the guest of honour.
Mm.
And then she catches up with Liz and she asks for a lift home because Neil couldn't get the car today. So I guess she's dating Neil Fremount now.
Yes.
They mentioned him in the last book.
Yeah. She's now with Neil for as long as that'll last.
And she tells Liz she needs to be home early to clean her room before dinner. And Elizabeth says, well, we better leave now then.
Yeah.
And then we're reminded of how her room was in the Hershey bar.
Brown walls, and you can barely move in there.
And Liz says she needs to stay late at the Oracle to finish the Eyes and Ears column. Like, they're literally mentioning everything. Eyes and Ears, Hershey bar, everything about the description.
Like
Olivia's frizzy hair.
Yeah, I feel like we got to book 15 and they were like, right, we are established now. We're going to talk about everything all the time, and you're just going to have to keep up now.
Maybe it's the same ghostwriter for this little clump of books, and they're a really good ghostwriter.
Yeah. Whoever was ghostwriting this had read the previous books, clearly.
Definitely.
They know what they're talking about.
So Elizabeth says she'll drive Jessica home after she's done with the Eyes and Ears column. And Todd then asks Liz what she thinks about all this Roger business.
Yes. He asks, quote, he asks Miss Eyes and Ears what she thinks about it.
And Liz says she's concerned because he's dealing with a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And then Todd also asks if she's noticed anything odd about Regina Morrow lately.
Yes. And he's just a bit of a dick, really, here, I thought.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I've got some massive gossip. I can't tell you now.
Yeah. We're also told everyone had forgotten Regina was deaf, but nobody had forgotten she was beautiful.
Okay. Right.
Liz... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to point out that for some reason, this is a thing between Liz and Todd, I guess. During this part, Todd apparently teasingly kisses Liz on the tip of her nose.
Aww.
Yeah. It's a middle part of the connect the dots kiss.
Just a third of a connect
the dots kiss, yeah.
And Liz obviously wants to know what he means about Regina, but he says he has to get going. He'll explain later. And then all day, Liz loses her fucking mind.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my God, I need to know now. What's going on?
Miss I'm above, and we'll get to that as this book goes on, because she is always like Miss I'm above gossip, and Caroline Pierce is such a pain in the ass. But the whole way through this book, Liz is doing nothing but sticking her nose in everyone's goddamn business.
But this is different because this is her writer's curiosity.
Of course. This is her.
She's not nosy. She's a curious young writer.
Yeah.
And she's concerned.
Yeah, whenever she thinks horrible things about people, it's a writer's imagination.
Yeah.
It's always an excuse that doesn't involve Liz being awful.
And then we go to Bruce and Roger. They're arriving at the Patman mansion in 1 Bruce 1.
Yeah, of course.
And Roger's feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, they're pulling up in a Porsche now into the 5-car garage. He's going up to a room that's bigger than his whole entire house that he used to live in.
And Bruce and Mrs. Patman haven't really been welcoming to him.
No, in fact, it makes it clear that his new auntie has been pretty awful. She criticised the way he dresses, and she makes a big point about him talking to the staff as if they're people.
Yeah.
Instead of just leaving. It's like, oh, you treat the staff like they're human beings. How dare you?
Yeah, we get a bit of a flashback of the previous night. She called him into her bedroom where she was sat at her vanity table.
Of course.
Applying cream to her face. I
imagine she didn't even turn around to face him. She just kept applying it while talking,
whilst wearing a silk robe and those fluffy slippers, with the big puff of fluff on them.
Yeah, maybe some curlers in or something.
Yeah. And she called him in and she warned him that Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson were coming for dinner.
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson are special clients and he has to make a good impression and keep up the Patman name. And he feels like nothing he did was right. Like you said, his clothes, how he treated the servants.
Yeah.
And she looked down at his running shoes with disdain.
We'll get to that in a bit. She's got some weird hatred of running for some reason.
She looked down at them with disdain and said, oh, you have to get rid of them. And you should ask Bruce for fashion advice, as he's so clever with clothes.
Oh, Mrs. Patman loves her
Bruce.
rapey son so much. Everything Bruce does, as far as she's concerned, is wonderful. Oh, he's a tennis player. That's amazing. There's a bit later on that we'll get to. This is a good book.
Okay,
guys.
slow down.
This is a good book.
So back to the present. Roger's in his new bedroom, and it's huge. Yeah. It's got an enormous 4-poster bed, a mahogany desk, and a bookshelf full of leather-bound books that he'd never heard of. Yeah. And in the room, there's no stereo, no games, no sports equipment, nothing fun. Nothing fun.
Just a bare room, a bare massive room.
And he just didn't feel at home in it at all.
No, I just imagine it's like a stately home room, like
when you go on those tours of a stately home.
Yeah.
No one would live here. It's just for show.
Just for show.
He put on the new clothes that his uncle had bought him, and he looked like a stranger.
Yeah.
In the creased chinos, navy blazer, silk striped tie, and starched cotton shirt. He sounds like he's going to work.
He does, yeah, he does.
In an insurance office.
Bruce doesn't dress like this. I mean, I guess it's for dinner, but, you know.
I think Bruce wears blazer quite
well,
often.
I always like to think that Bruce just ties the blazer around his neck.
And then Bruce comes in and warns him that old Fergie can be a real terror.
Yeah, and then Bruce mocks how he looks immediately, saying that he looks nothing like the old Roger. But sadly, Roger thinks to himself that he feels oddly comfortable around Bruce because of all the Patmans that he's around. Bruce is the one that's honest about his disdain for Roger.
Yeah, he just openly hates him.
He just openly hates him. Whereas he feels like Mrs. Patman clearly does hate him. Snide, yeah.
Yeah. So when they get downstairs, he almost laughs when he sees six place settings around a table big enough for 30 people.
Yeah,
and they're all spaced out about a mile apart.
Yeah. I imagine it's like the scene from Batman where they have the like intimate meal together and they're at the either ends of the long massive table. Like, yeah, I can imagine. I would have laughed at that.
But then he doesn't feel like laughing anymore
when
he catches Mrs. Patman's icy glance.
Yes, yeah, and then of course he's introduced to Mr. Ferguson.
He's in his 60s with small black eyes, and he looked at Roger like he was a stray dog in an animal shelter.
Yeah, lovely.
And Mrs. Ferguson is much younger. Gold digger.
Yeah.
And Roger had never seen diamonds so big or nails so long when he looked at her.
I imagine she just looks ridiculous, just huge diamond rings on every hat, on every finger, and you know.
He shakes Mr. Ferguson's hand, and then he offers his hand to Mrs. Ferguson, and she just looks down on it with amused disdain.
Yeah, it says this. She looks past him.
There's a lot of disdain in this book.
Yeah, there is a lot of disdain for Roger in this book and his friends. Yeah, she looks at him. She looks past him and just says, "Charmed, I'm sure." And like Roger's just left there with his hand out, and then he's like puts his hand down like, "Oh, great." And apparently Roger thinks that's strike one.
And he's really confused by the 5 forks in front of him.
Yeah, I'd be confused too, to be honest.
Doesn't this happen in Titanic?
It does. It's exactly what I thought of was the scene from Titanic. And I also remember the advice in Titanic was that you start on the outside and work your way in.
Yeah, that's how I knew. I wouldn't have known.
That's the only way I know is because of Titanic.
That's how we learn.
Yeah.
And but no one seems to be paying him any attention anyway. The men are talking about the stock market.
Yeah.
And all their money. And Mrs. Ferguson is asking Bruce if he's been involving himself in the world of art lately. Yes.
Bruce kind of awkwardly says not so much anymore. And Roger's like wondering what art Bruce is into. And he thinks maybe she means the drive-in movies that Bruce takes his dates to. Although, quote, he never gets to see more than 10 minutes of those.
Yeah, he starts raping them after 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he starts assaulting people after that.
So the salad comes out and he just thinks, well, I'll just try the fork closest to me.
Yeah.
Wrong answer. And then Bruce delightedly tells him really loudly that he's got the wrong fork.
Yeah.
And apparently Mrs. Ferguson stares at him with a mixture of fascination and horror.
I imagine they're just there, like he said, the stray dog in an animal shelter.
Like he's an
they're
alien.
Just looking at him like he's a zoo exhibit, you know, like.
Yeah, and then she asks in a funny, high-pitched voice, "Do you think that I might possibly have the bread basket?"
And poor Roger, he tries. He's like, "Oh yes, of course."
Oh my god. Yeah, as he passes it to her, the sleeve of his blazer catches on a glass of red wine.
Now, he spills the wine from the glass, one glass of red wine, on the white tablecloth. That's going to be messy, obviously. Mrs. Patman immediately shouts at him, "How careless of you."
Yeah.
But then Mrs. Ferguson, and the book makes it very clear, Mrs. Ferguson is crying that her dress is utterly ruined. And the book says it is a near microscopic speck of red wine on her dress, like a tiniest little dot. And she's like, "Oh, you've ruined my whole dress."
And Mr. Patman is really cool. He's like, well, it's only a little bit of wine.
Can I say, Mr. Patman, in my opinion, is the hero of this story.
I like Mr. Patman.
He's the only one of this family that I have any like for.
But then he rings a little bell to summon the servant.
Yeah, I mean, he does have servants.
That was a bit much, you know. It's like, he's not a dog. So Roger's so embarrassed by all this, he excuses himself and he disappears up into his room for the night.
Yeah, and on the way upstairs, he can hear Mrs. Patman apologising to the Fergusons, and he just thinks he doesn't care. He just wants to be alone without any of this nonsense.
In Elizabeth's room, Jessica is doing Jane Fonda exercises.
Yeah, she's listening to her Jane Fonda tape.
To the tape in her Walkman.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's brilliant.
Because apparently her room is full of some t-shirts she's painted for a cheerleading fundraiser.
Which will never come up again.
Yeah, don't really go into that much.
It's weird because later on she says she made loads of money from cookies. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but what about I want to know about the t-shirts.
I want one.
Yeah, so do I. They sound pretty cool.
Actually, they sound shit.
I know, but in a really funny way.
They describe them later. Yeah. They do sound shit. But she tells Elizabeth she thinks Roger's looking different lately. Almost cute.
Yeah, Liz says that he looks the same as he always has.
And then she's like, well, is he taking Olivia to the dance?
Probably.
Of course he is, yeah. This is
like,
girlfriend.
They've been dating for, months now.
Yeah. And then she goes over to Elizabeth's mirror and she starts complaining that her face is getting rounder.
Yeah, and we get the usual thing.
Yeah. Another unfunny section of Liz saying, we look exactly the same.
Yeah, this
blah,
joke
blah,
is
blah. Every
tired now, isn't it? Every time.
It wasn't even funny the first time.
I thought it was quite amusing the first time, but now it's like every time we're going over this.
And then she starts talking about what to wear to the party and she goes off into a daydream. One of her fabulous daydreams about her and Roger dancing while everyone admires them and claps.
She should be a writer. That's a writer's imagination right there in Jessica.
She has got a very active imagination.
She does, yeah.
And she thinks Olivia's hardly the right sort of girl for Roger Patman. Roger Patman needs someone more exciting than Roger Barrett did.
Yes. And of course, Jess suggests maybe she'll buy herself a really elegant dress.
At least she didn't say sophisticated again.
She didn't say sophisticated this time, no. But of course, Jess has to leave because Liz is expecting a very important phone call.
It's Todd.
Finally.
She's been, biting her nails off all day. Ripping her hair out with frustration. I need to know. So when he calls, Todd says, basically, Regina's been skipping last periods. And yesterday, he saw her in the parking lot looking nervous. And when she saw him, she hurried away. So she probably just doesn't like you. Doesn't want to talk to you, Todd.
Yeah. I mean...
and then when she hurried away, he chased her.
I know. I just imagine
get the hint, Todd.
This terrified deaf girl just running away from this.
She doesn't want to talk to you.
Player who's chasing after her.
She doesn't want to talk to you, Todd.
What's wrong?
And then she still ignored him even when he chased her.
If you saw a friend and you were like, oh, they look worried, and you went to speak to them, and they look really upset and ran away, you'd let them go, wouldn't you? And just be like, I'll speak to them later, and just,
Yeah, and he doesn't even know her that well anyway.
You wouldn't rush after them. Yeah, it's not even someone he knows very well. They've only met, a couple of weeks ago. And
he's also noticed that she's been spending a lot of time alone lately. What is he? Is he obsessed with her?
He seems to be obsessed with her, yeah. It is a weird obsession he's got in this book.
He's really obsessed with her in this book.
I would, if I was Liz, I would be questioning her.
I would be as well.
I'd be like, you're spending a lot of time.
A lot of time. You're noticing a lot of things about Regina.
It's a bit weird, dude.
And then he says to Liz, if she can get the car tomorrow, they can find out exactly what's going on.
Yes, some awful news because, of course, Todd's car has recently broken down on the way to Liz's, and it will not be repaired in time. So he begs Liz if they can borrow the red Fiat Spider.
Yeah. The next day at the Wakefield breakfast table, Jessica's wearing one of the t-shirts that she's painted. So we finally get a description of these t-shirts.
Yeah.
She tells Ned and Alice they're going to make a fortune. And apparently it's just a white t-shirt splashed with paint.
Yeah.
Randomly.
She's just chucked paint over
No design, no picture. She just splashed paint on it. But she carefully colour coordinated the paint with her blue-green eyes.
Of course.
That's the one she's got. It sounds absolutely shit.
Yeah, it does. And I can see why she ends up making her money from cookies instead.
And then we're reminded of Ned's broad shoulders and rugged good looks.
Yeah, they actually say that he looks like an older Stephen.
And they also say Alice looks like the twins' older sister.
Yeah, we get the full Alice description.
This book's just got everything.
It's got everything. It does. There was not a page on this book that I wasn't making notes constantly. It's just something's going on all the time.
And then Jessica tells Elizabeth she doesn't need a ride to school because she's going with Neil.
Yeah.
And we're told a bit about Neil.
Mm-hmm.
We're told that he's one of the best looking guys at school. And he's got a brand new sports car. So he's like hot property at Sweet Valley High.
Which the book, I think, heavily insinuates is the only reason Jess is with him. I don't think she's even interested in him. He's just like the hot new item, so she's like, she has to get with him.
She described him to Cara as okay until something better comes along.
Yes, and Ned, I thought being a bit cheeky here, Ned's like, oh hey, has the like list of boys, if you started narrowing down the list of boys, and I was like, that's not a very nice thing to say to your daughter, is it? Like,
yeah.
And she says to Ned that they're just friends.
Liz sets off in the Fiat Spider and she's still obsessing over Regina's life.
Yeah, and weirdly she stresses thinking that she shouldn't have asked to borrow the car again, and it's like, well, it's not a big deal, is it?
She drives past Olivia and she offers her a ride. And then they mention Olivia's frizzy hair again for the second time in this book.
Yeah. So, I got a little quiz for you.
Okay.
So, we get the description of Olivia, and then Olivia gets in the car, and they start driving to school. As soon as Olivia sets foot in the car, 3 options I'll give you. Pop quiz. What do you think the first thing that Liz said when she got in the car? Was it 1, how are you, Olivia? 2, did you have a nice evening, Olivia? Or 3, I'm late because I've got super important Oracle work to do. I work at the Oracle, the newspaper. I'm a journalist. I'm a very talented journalist. And I don't have time because I'm so important.
Oh, I'm going to go for the third one.
Yeah, it's the third one. Like, literally, she doesn't even say hello to her. She's just like, the Oracle. I've got to get to the Oracle. I mean, I know that Olivia works there too, but it's a bit like, it's a bit over the top.
We're reminded that Olivia's the arts editor of the Oracle. And Jessica thought she was weird because she was always dragging around drawings and poems with her.
Yeah, how big are these drawings and poems that she has to
dragging
drag
them around? A poem written on like a slab.
She's just like carrying like A1 drawings, just dragging them along the floor.
And also, Jessica thinks she wears freaky clothes.
Yeah. I think she dresses better than most in these books, to be honest. I quite like her. I like her style.
It's hit and miss for me.
Yeah, fair
There's
enough.
an outfit in this book that's very miss, which
we'll get to. Yeah.
But that day she was wearing long silver earrings that made her look like a Mexican princess.
Okay.
I guess they'd have to be long so you could see them through all that frizz.
Yeah, that's the thing. I imagine her earrings have to be huge to get through the frizz. Yeah, it's a problem.
And Liz compliments her on the earrings and she says Roger gave them to her. And then Liz says, oh, how is Roger? The change must have been hard on him. Finally, she's like asking, talking about something other than herself.
Yeah.
And apparently, they start talking about a barbecue the Patmans are having. So as well as the party at the country club, they're also having an informal barbecue to welcome him.
So this makes no sense to me. It's like the barbecue is surely...
before.
The barbecue's a better setting. It's
they could have just done the barbecue.
It's informal. He'd be well more chilled. It makes no sense. It's like, we're going to do this, and then it's like they just want to show him off to people, so they're doing the party. It's weird. But yeah, they're going to have a barbecue first.
So Olivia says unconvincingly, like, she's looking forward to it.
Yeah, and Liz can kind of tell that she's worried.
At school that afternoon, later on, Liz and Todd are waiting in the car for Regina so they can stalk her.
Yeah.
And Liz says she doesn't feel right about Todd's plan.
But she's going to go along with it
I
anyway.
bet she's desperate to do it.
She is. Of course she is. She just doesn't want to be the one to be blamed for it. So, yeah.
And Todd says, well, Regina might be in some kind of trouble.
She's all right, isn't she? She's coming to school and stuff.
She could have been... going to some medical appointments about her hearing or something.
Yeah, I know. And as we'll find out, that she does end up near the medical centre, and they still don't even think that. It's like, and
one
never
of them
even
could
a
have just
question.
asked her, are you okay? Why are you leaving school early?
Yeah, just question it.
But no, they literally stalk her.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to wonder where she's going, but stalking her.
It's another thing, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I guess they've got no life of their own, nothing going on.
I guess not.
That's what they do as a couple, you know.
Get involved in other people's business, and when there is no business, they just start stalking random people.
Yeah. So she comes out of school and they start stalking.
Right. Now, Todd is mental in this bit. Because they're going after... Right, so Regina gets on a bus, and she's driving down the road on the bus. They're following in the Fiat Spider, and Todd is like, we can't lose them, and they get to a red light, and he suggests to Liz that they just run the red light to try and catch this bus, and he's like, oh, we don't want to lose them, and it's like, Todd, buses have routes. You're not going to lose it. It's going to go the same route it always goes, so you'll know where it's going. It's fine.
He's absolutely obsessed.
He's properly obsessed for, why, though?
And then I really like this bit. When they follow the bus and she gets off at the Sweet Valley Business District.
Yeah.
And then she takes a compact mirror out of her bag and starts putting on lipstick. And Todd's like, oh my God, what's she doing?
What is this?
She's putting on lipstick, Todd.
I made a note saying that when they pulled up, they're lucky that Regina's deaf, because Todd just started shouting, there she is, quick Liz, find a parking space.
And then he acts like he's never seen any... like he's never seen she put on lipstick before. Yeah, like, what's she doing? Oh my God. I can't stop laughing.
Oh,
this is what I said to you when I was like, I want to see if you noticed the same thing as me about the B plot.
Yeah,
and I was like, I won't tell you what it is. I'm going to see if
Todd
you noticed.
It
was the fact that Todd is absolutely insane.
Obsessed with Regina.
He's obsessed. And then she disappeared into a glamorous building with a tall, handsome man in his late 30s.
Yes.
I'm actually crying.
He kisses her on the cheek and then walks into the, quote, glamorous building with her.
They wonder what she's doing, but then they start to have a conversation about it, and they're interrupted by Lila, who's in time for a dentist appointment.
Allegedly, although Liz thinks that she saw Regina. She thinks that she was looking in Regina's direction.
And Liz lies that they're there to meet Ned from work, and Lila buys it. And then they spot Roger across the road at the sports shop.
The sports shop. Not to be confused with the tennis shop.
I love it. Where was it? We were in Portishead, which is a little town by us.
We found it, didn't we? There's a little town by us. We went there for a day trip, and we found the sports shop.
I was so excited. I've taken a photo of it. I'm going to post it later on.
Yeah.
So Roger's at the sports shop with Mr. Patman. And Lila remarks, everyone is downtown today.
Yeah.
And gives Liz a knowing smile. So she's obviously seen Regina too.
Yeah.
So at the sports shop, Mr. Patman wants to buy Roger some decent running clothes.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, after what we heard of his running gear in, what was the book called? The one with the bar race.
Yeah, I can't remember.
The one with all the running.
Oh no.
But anyway, a few books ago, after we heard of his running clothes, I think he does need some new clothes. Remember, he turned up to the race in his he had something like army pants or something, and then he had to wear the same clothes around school all day.
Yeah, that's right. No, I don't know what book it was, but that book, the Bart race book.
Yeah. So he buys shorts, shoes, and his own tennis racket, which he protests he doesn't need, but Mr. Patman reminds him he's got his own tennis courts now. Yeah.
I'm confused because later on they mentioned the tennis shop, and I'm confused why maybe the tennis rackets are cheaper in the sports shop than in the tennis shop.
It's just not enough. They just need more tennis stuff.
They just need more tennis stuff. They're like, no, but we're specifically tennis.
Well, we know how much they love tennis in Sweet Valley.
Well, they certainly do. But yeah, of course, Roger has his own court now, so he has to have his own racket. And
then they ride home in a limo.
Yeah, and it's the first time that Roger actually momentarily forgets about everyone in his life being awful now.
Yeah.
And thinks,
And forgets that his mum died a week ago.
Well, yes. Briefly.
Anyway, so on Saturday, it's a beautiful hot day. And Jessica's ready for the barbecue. She's wearing a new sleek black bathing suit from Foxy Mama's.
Then I've made a note here saying that it's a serious event if she spent money on Foxy Mama's for something. Yeah. This is important.
Surprised she didn't get it from the bathing suit shop.
yeah.
The swimming shop. And we're told she usually goes for bikinis to show off her trim stomach.
Yes.
But the saleswoman told her this would be more sophisticated.
Sophisticated.
That word again.
It's Jess's favourite word.
And she thinks Roger will take one look at her and realise he's in love with her. And just forget about Olivia and dump her.
Yeah, just on the spot.
Like even though like he's known her for years.
I know.
This bathing suit is going to change everything.
The thing
He'll
is,
just leave his girlfriend.
It's really weird because, like, especially when she starts doing this, because she's like, I'm going to dress really sophisticated and like, I'm going to start wearing this sophisticated clothes. And because she's got this whole ensemble, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, that she's wearing. And it's like, she's so sophisticated looking to convince Roger that she's sophisticated. But it's like, he knows who you are. He knows you don't dress like this. Every one of your friends who's going to be at the barbecue, including him, knows what you dress like every day.
Yeah.
So why are you doing it? Like, you're not fooling anyone. It's not like she's going to meet someone who doesn't know her. They already know her. She's not fooling anyone.
And then when Elizabeth comes in, she's surprised to see Jessica wearing a pair of crisp white tennis shorts and a turquoise polo shirt.
Yes, and immediately she is concerned because the last time that Liz saw her dressing like this, dressing this preppy, was when she was with Bruce Patman.
Yeah, and she was trying to impress him.
Yeah.
And Jessica tells her everyone's talking about Regina's mystery older man.
Yeah. So now Liz is like, mystery older man, how did you know about the mystery older man? And obviously it's quite clear Lila has been talking.
And Elizabeth wonders why Lila would spread such vicious rumours about Regina.
Why wouldn't she?
Like, well, why would you stalk her?
Yeah, well, A, why would you stalk her? And B, even if Lila, like, barely knew her, which I guess she doesn't, like, it's Lila. She'd do anything to, like, slag people off and spread rumours.
The barbecue is next to the Patmans' Olympic-sized pool.
Yeah.
And Roger takes them to meet his new aunt and uncle. Well, they've met them already at some point.
I would have thought she would have met her uncle, like, at least.
Yeah.
Because, like,
I'm sure she
you would have thought so, right? You would have thought so. But Jess is immediately trying to impress Mrs. Patman.
Yeah. She starts complimenting her outfit. She's wearing pink satin lounge pyjamas. We were told it was a really hot day earlier at the start of this chapter. Why the hell is she wearing that?
She stinks.
Yeah.
She's sweating. Like...
and then Jess starts complimenting the flower beds as well.
Yeah, that was a weird compliment.
Liz and Todd go to join Enid and George. And Bruce is chatting to some older girls. Liz says she doesn't know where he finds them.
Yeah.
And then George says, well, I want to know where he found that bathing suit.
Yes.
It's the tiniest thing I've ever seen.
Todd calls it a Band-Aid.
I've got that image now.
Yeah, I know, so did I. I had a very strong image of Bruce in these tiny
like, just
trunks.
naked with a Band-Aid over his bits.
Yeah.
Bad. Don't want it.
It's not a good image.
Elizabeth goes over to Olivia, who's alone and she's looking uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Roger's just fucking left her.
Yeah, Olivia says that she's sad because Roger told her to come over early to show her around the place, but then forgot.
What an idiot.
Like, he just forgot.
How could you forget that?
Yeah, so he was getting ready when she arrived, and Mrs. Patman was a complete bitch. Apparently looked at her like she was delivering a parcel.
Meanwhile, Jessica had asked Mrs. Patman to be introduced to all the other adults.
Yeah.
And she's sitting with the Fergusons.
Yeah, apparently Mrs. Patman is also smiling so widely that Jessica starts to worry that something's wrong with her. Like, she's overjoyed with Jessica. She loves Jessica.
And Mrs. Ferguson says teenagers today are the most inconsiderate creatures she's ever seen. And Jessica's like, yes, I have to agree. And then she starts collecting empty glasses from all the tables. Where are the servants?
Yeah, you're not the help.
I'm surprised Mrs. Patman
Letter?
was impressed by that.
Yeah, if Roger had done that, she would have been like, what are you doing, Roger?
Yeah.
Stop it.
And Neil goes over and complains he hasn't seen her all day, and she hisses at him to go away. She's like, go away. Leave me alone. I'm busy.
Networking.
Mrs. Patman tells Roger that Jessica is so lovely and poised, and a pleasure to be around.
Yeah.
And then she says, what's the name of your little friend that arrived early and asks if they know her family.
Yeah.
They're interrupted by Jessica. She asks Mrs. Patman where to put the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Patman is really impressed. Like we said, I don't think she would be.
I don't think she would be. It's weird.
And she takes her to the kitchen, and then she invites her for a glass of cold lemonade in the breakfast room.
Yeah.
This bit's really sinister.
This is awful.
So, in the breakfast room, Jessica notices Mrs. Patman's diamond ring goes all the way up to her knuckle.
That's a big
so
diamond.
tacky.
That's insane.
That sounds disgusting.
That's like fashion jewelry size. That's like ridiculous.
What you get from a cracker.
Those are the kind of things I always think are pointless. Because like people get like, they're like, look at the size of the ruby on this ring, and it's like once it gets to a certain size, most people are going to assume it's fake.
Looks like it came from Claire's.
Yeah,
Claire's accessories.
Yeah. You won that in a little grabber egg.
And then she asks if Jessica is a close friend of Roger's.
Yeah, and she says, well, I wish I knew him more. He's always so busy and he loves his running.
Mrs. Patman wrinkled her nose and she says running's a dreadful habit.
It's
not like smoking a cigarette. How is running a dreadful habit?
Your son.
And also Bruce runs.
Bruce runs, and he's an attempted rapist.
Yeah, Bruce runs, and he's crap at it.
Yeah, he's rubbish at it, yeah. Maybe that's why she turns her nose up at it, because Bruce lost.
Yeah.
Part, and she's like, oh, well, running's rubbish then.
But I bet Roger lied and went home and said he'd won.
That's probably true, actually. He probably would have
that
gone
Roger
home and said,
him.
yeah, I beat him. Or I let him win. I felt sorry for him.
And she says she wishes Bruce would take up something... sorry, not Bruce. She wishes Roger would take up something more social, like tennis. And Jess says tennis is her favourite sport. And then this is where it gets sinister. She's like, oh, I want to make sure Roger knows the right sort of people now that he's a Patman.
Yeah.
And she asks what Jessica thinks of Olivia. Jessica says Olivia's a bit too shy. And Mrs. Patman says, yeah, she's terribly awkward. She's not the sort of girl who can help Roger. And Jessica says, yeah, I know what you mean. And then Mrs. Patman's like, well, so we understand each other.
Yes, and apparently gives Jessica a very knowing look.
Like, it's just really weird.
Then, well, I mean, have you got it written down, what she actually says?
She says, I want Roger to find someone more suitable to spend his time with, and maybe you can help.
Yeah. She's like straight up telling Jessica, get rid of Olivia and take my son, my adopted son, to the dance.
Yeah, she says she'd love to see them together at the country club party in 2 weeks' time.
Unbelievable.
And Jessica thinks she'll get straight to work with that.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica was already going to be trying to do this anyway. Now she's got all of the like backup she's ever wanted. Like his adopted mum is behind this too, you know? Yeah. She's getting told by an adult to go and be the bitch she was already going to be anyway. Like,
Mrs. Patman is a piece of work.
She's awful. Out of any character in this book, I think she is my least. I hate her the most.
Elizabeth sees Lila and Caroline talking to Regina, so of course she decides to eavesdrop.
She's got to go and eavesdrop, yeah.
I mean, she's stalked her, she might as well eavesdrop now, you know.
Yeah, why not?
They're asking her about her older man, and she's saying she doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, she says she claims not to know anything, but looks awkward and kind of embarrassed.
And Lila tells Caroline it's unfair of Regina to hide him away because he looks just like Paul Newman.
Yeah, that just makes it really unfair.
Liz hurries over to Enid and Todd to tell them everything that she's just heard.
Yeah.
She says she's worried Regina will be faced with stupid rumours, and she thinks Lila's spreading them because she feels threatened by Regina's beauty and wealth.
Well, Liz, maybe if you were really worried about spreading rumours, you shouldn't go around telling people.
Yeah.
You're spreading it yourself right now.
Todd agrees, and he says, I think we should carry on spying on her.
And Liz rightly points out why. Like, we already know all we're going to know from spying.
She says they've gone far enough.
There's no need to keep following this innocent girl everywhere she goes, Todd.
And apparently Todd's gutted.
Yeah, he looks so upset that she's like, oh, don't worry, we'll find another case for you to investigate soon.
Yeah.
Like, he's obsessed.
I know.
It's so
he's
weird.
Really obsessed.
It's really weird.
And Liz says we can still be there for Regina.
Yeah, we just won't stalk her anymore.
Yeah.
Like a normal friendship.
Yeah. Over at the buffet, Elizabeth says to Jessica how good all the food looks.
Yeah.
And they've got hamburgers, hot dogs, salad, coleslaw, every kind of fruit imaginable, and an array of desserts.
Wow.
She tells Jessica she wishes she felt more confident, and Jessica's like, "Oh, relax."
Yeah, she says that she admires Jessica.
Yeah.
Which I was really surprised at, because it's like, Olivia, you've known Jessica long enough. You don't admire her. I guess she admires her in this specific situation.
Yeah, her confidence.
Yeah.
This bit's so stupid, though, because Olivia's feeling insecure about whether to take dessert now or whether to take her main, eat that, and then go back and get dessert.
Yeah.
Like, big fucking deal.
Oh, it's the biggest deal ever. The weird thing is,
cares?
though, is that everyone else treats it like a huge deal as well now, which I find really weird.
Such a weird scene. And she says to Jessica she's unsure whether to take dessert yet because nobody else has taken dessert yet. Well, just don't take dessert yet then. Just go back and get it after.
Jess is like, well, YOLO. Like, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, take the massive risk and plunge of getting your dessert.
Because Jessica's wanting to make her look stupid.
Why
would that make you look stupid?
I was
really weird.
But somehow it works.
Yeah. Olivia fills a second plate with fruit and brownies. So she's holding 2 plates now. She's got a plate of savoury and a plate of dessert.
Like a normal person who doesn't want to put their dessert on the same plate as their main. Yeah.
And then she goes up to the table and she doesn't have any hands free to pull a chair out.
Yeah.
And like normal people just be like, oh, you know, why can't she put the plate down on the table and then pull the chair out with her other
She's just stood there with
pull the chair out with her other
What do I do?
But Bruce starts shouting loudly, oh, you've got a good appetite.
Yeah, he calls her Olivia
because you've had like
plates.
2 courses. Like, that's not a big deal.
It's a normal amount of courses.
Yeah, you'd have made it a dessert.
If it was weird, then why would you have dessert out at all? If everyone's only going to eat the main course, like, it's there to be eaten, so this is perfectly normal.
Yeah,
she's just not going to go back up, which everyone else is going to do, right?
Yeah,
it's no weirder
I know.
than like anyone else.
And yeah, like you said, Bruce calls her Olivia 2 plates,
and this apparently. Like, everyone stops and looks at her.
I know, like, everyone goes quiet.
It's like, she's just got her dessert as well as her main.
I know.
This is not weird.
And then Jessica offers to help her, but, like, makes, like, a huge meal out of it. Like, starts rearranging the whole fucking table.
Yeah,
and, like, shouting loudly, like, oh, I'll help you, and, like, drawing attention to it and making it look like a massive deal.
Yeah. Yeah, making it like just making as big of a scene as possible about.
Yeah,
the
apparently
fact that
she moves everything on the table around.
Yeah,
like what? And then Jessica notices Roger's looking embarrassed by this, and she thinks her plan is off to a great start.
Yeah.
So her plan is basically to make Olivia feel as insecure as possible.
Yeah, she's just going to keep making Olivia feel awkward and look weird and strange in front of everybody.
Yeah, she follows her around all day.
Yeah.
She pressures her into entering a diving contest with her.
Yeah.
So Neil and Roger want to do a diving contest, and Olivia says, like, I'm not a good diver. And Jessica's like, oh, come on. Don't be a spoil sport. Join in.
Yeah, go do it.
And she does it, and she ends up belly flopping.
Yeah, and almost drowning. She ends up with water in her mouth. It's like, really, she's really kind of upset. And
again, Jess does the same thing again. She helps. Like, she draws massive attention to the situation.
Yeah, doesn't she say, like, oh my god,
she's like, oh
hurt.
my god. She starts screaming, like, oh my god, she's hurt. And, like, then making everybody stare.
Of course.
And then Olivia says she wants to go home. Don't blame her.
Yeah. She's she says that she's gonna stick to sunbathing instead. And Jess says that she's gonna go dry off, and she'll rejoin Olivia soon. And of course, Jessica bumps into Bruce.
Yeah, he asks her if she's up for a game of tennis soon.
And I do not blame Jess for saying no, because the last time they had a tennis game, Bruce was pretty mad at the fact that she was better than him.
He was furious.
He was like, to the point of, like, it seemed like he was going to get violent. He actually scared her into losing, didn't he?
Yeah. But she says, she suggests they could play doubles against Roger and Olivia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bruce is suspicious because he knows that Jessica does not usually hang around with people like them.
No.
But he agrees.
Yeah.
Back at the Wakefield's house, Elizabeth is eavesdropping again at Jessica's phone call with Olivia.
Yes, apparently there's a new VHS player at the house that Ned has installed.
Like,
yes,
that
like
makes it sound major. You just plug it in. Guess you set the time on it.
Built it and everything. Yeah, it came in like a magazine in parts every week. You had to assemble it. Yeah, it's a flat back VCR. And so there's apparently a film on, and I wondered if that was Car Capers, which we learned about in Sweet Valley Twins last week.
Yeah. It'll be a bit old by now.
Be a bit old, yeah. It's a bit old, but it's a classic.
They're watching like Car Capers 5 or something.
But Car Capers is, according to Stephen, the best film ever made. So you'd think it would still be pretty high up. It'd be in your top 10 still, wouldn't it?
If you haven't listened to our Twins episode, this makes no sense.
No, sorry, it doesn't. But go listen to Twins. Go listen to Casey.
Yeah.
But of course, she turns it down. She turns it all down so that she can eavesdrop again. Liz being nosy. That's all she does in this book.
I know. So Jessica's planning the tennis match with Olivia, and she's saying how rusty she is at tennis.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm rubbish." And Liz is confused. She's like, "This isn't true."
No,
Jessica's
she
amazing
knows.
at tennis.
Yeah, she knows Jessica's amazing at tennis, and that she'd never put herself down like that either.
Mm. And Jessica invites Olivia to the tennis shop to get an outfit.
So I want to know what the situation is there. Like, why is the sports shop I guess more expensive for tennis, or doesn't have the right stuff?
I just think it doesn't have enough tennis equipment.
I guess they have rackets.
They need a lot of tennis equipment in Sweet Valley.
Yeah, I guess
they're always playing it.
It is probably Sweet Valley's next to basketball. I think it is the most played sport in Sweet Valley, so I guess it makes sense.
And then when she hangs up, Elizabeth asks what she's up to, and she says, I just want to give Olivia some help because Lila's still after Roger and she doesn't deserve him after the way she treated him.
Yeah.
And Liz is like, oh my God, that's so nice that you're being so considerate.
Yeah, apparently it makes her think that her sister might be becoming a nicer person.
She knows Jessica doesn't like Olivia.
I know, and I wrote here, I was like, of course she's not becoming nice, Liz.
I know.
Like, look at what she did to Betsy a week ago. Like, she's not being nice.
So we go to Monday on the school lawn. Liz, Enid and Todd spot Regina's older man picking her up again in his Ferrari.
Right. It says that he pulls up in a beautiful beige Ferrari. I was like, who buys a beige Ferrari? A beige car at all,
it's
let alone a Ferrari. Apparently so.
And Lila and Cara have also spotted him.
Yeah.
So they're straight over, asking if they can help him with anything.
Yeah, and of course he just asks where Regina is.
Yeah, and then Regina rushes over and says, hi, Lane. He takes her books from her and they head off. Caroline asks Lila if that was the guy, and Lila smirks and says that was him.
Yeah, apparently Lila also shouts, I wonder where they're off to, so that everyone that's outside looks.
And then she thinks Regina's ruining her reputation.
Yeah. She's
not.
It's Lila.
At the tennis shop, Jessica tells Olivia that she's wearing an interesting outfit. That always means like
that's a real bitchy comment. Yeah.
It's a wraparound skirt, an Indian shirt, and leather sandals. Olivia says she found the skirt in a thrift store. We know which thrift store.
Is it called the Thrift Store?
No, the thrift store's got a good name, Martha's Thrift Store. Remember?
Have we? Oh, I've forgotten that one.
Yeah, Olivia told Roger.
Oh, yes, I do.
She shops
remember.
at Martha's Thrift Store.
Yeah.
See, they can come up with names.
Well, yeah, Foxy Mama's. It's a great name.
Yeah.
Kelly's Roadhouse. Casey's Ice Cream Parlour. But it's just like closed.
Shady
for some
Lady.
Reason. The
It's
Shady
obviously
Lady.
the best.
Yeah, of course.
Should have just been called like The Bar.
The Bar, yeah.
The Pub.
The Pub, the Club. I just imagine that Jess looks at Olivia like she's an alien when she says, like, I got it at a thrift store.
Yeah.
To Jessica, it's like, what?
Apparently she says, really? In that, like, bitchy way.
Yeah, I imagine her head moves side from side when she said it as well.
20 minutes later, Olivia comes out of the fitting room in starched white shorts and a polo shirt.
Yeah.
She says it doesn't feel very her. And Jessica agrees, and she says, maybe you don't need tennis clothes. They don't look quite right on you, do they?
Again, it's all thinly veiled, like, insults.
Yeah.
You know?
And Olivia says, well, maybe I'll just wear a comfortable pair of track shorts. And Jessica says, that's the spirit.
Yeah.
Be yourself.
Yeah, Jess is, like, delighted by this. Everything's going her way.
Yeah,
because she's pretending to help, but she doesn't want her to look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she takes Olivia to another shop with a great name.
Mm-hmm.
The designer shop.
The designer shop. I wonder what they have in that shop.
I can't take it. Can't take all these good shop names.
These
They're
shop
too
names
much.
are so good. They really are.
And that she's looking for a designer dress to wear to the party.
Really? In the designer shop?
In the designer shop, yeah.
Oh, okay.
If they're sold out, they'll go to the dress shop.
I guess so, yeah.
The party dress shop. And Olivia says she's planned to wear a dress that she designed and made herself. She'd bought some fabric, but she hadn't considered the impression the dress would make, because Jessica says you have to make the right impression.
Yeah. Now, it says here that she looks at the price tag of this dress and is shocked that it's $299.
Yeah.
Now, I did the maths. $299 in 1985 is $760 in today's money.
Oh my god.
So, that's an expensive dress.
It's designer.
I guess, yeah.
She firmly says no. She's not interested in this dress. Apparently it's flimsy and strapless. And Jessica says, well, I probably shouldn't say anything.
Oh, this is where the bitchiness comes out.
But I overheard Roger telling Todd something. And then Olivia's like, what? And she's like, just
I can't
forget
tell.
it.
I shouldn't tell you.
Yeah,
I shouldn't say anything.
And then Olivia persuades her to say, and she says, well, he told Todd he was having a hard time with his aunt, and it would be easier if Olivia cared more about her clothes.
See, it's like it's a good lie, because it's veiled in truth of, like, he is having a tough time with his aunt. So that makes sense, and that's believable to Olivia. And then she adds in the bit about Olivia adding to that problem.
She says Olivia should think about Roger's feelings and what kind of dress he'd want her to wear.
No.
Like feminism.
Yeah.
Like,
well done, Jess.
Don't think of what you want.
Think about what the man wants.
Just think about what Roger wants you to wear.
Is this the 1950s?
I know. Olivia starts to worry that maybe she's not right for Roger after all.
Yeah, she wonders if he'd be better off with someone who better suits his new lifestyle.
Cut to Sweet Valley High cafeteria. Lila's eating Hungarian goulash, which I've never seen in a school cafeteria before.
I know. Meanwhile, Jess is eating chips.
Yeah.
It's
She
like
says
one extreme to the other in this cafeteria.
Yeah. She says she needs energy for the tennis match.
Yeah.
And Lila says it makes her sick to watch Olivia with Roger. And Jessica says she's got a feeling Roger will take someone else to the party.
Yeah, and Lila says, like, oh, I think I know who you mean. Like, they know exactly what's going on.
Caroline comes over to gossip about Regina and the party. And she says it's too bad Adam can't make it.
Yeah.
And this is where we get a bit of a setup for the next book, called Love Letters. So they ask who Adam is, and Caroline gushes that he's wonderful. He lives 2 hours away in Cold Springs, so he can't come to the party.
Yeah, which I made a note here saying, well, he definitely could. 2 hours is not...
No, it's not that long,
It's not that far.
Jessica and Lila are surprised because they've never, ever seen Caroline with a date.
And she's never mentioned him until now, right? It's just all of a sudden, here's Adam.
And she says, well, we met at a party that my parents gave, and our fathers used to work together. She says he's tall with an incredible build, and he writes her love letters every day. Meanwhile, Liz and Todd go to sit with Regina. I feel like they're just trying to be
Regina at this point is like, oh, for God's sake, leave me alone.
I feel like they're trying to be casual, like, but they're still, like, clearly obsessed with her.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, hi, Regina.
Just makes it
funny
even worse.
seeing you here.
Yeah.
And Caroline sees them, and she goes over to the table, and she asks Regina why in the world she want to be involved with someone old enough to be her father. That made me realise as well, we are old enough to be the parents.
Parents of...
We could be Regina's parents.
We could be.
We are old enough.
Yeah, you could be Alice.
I was like, oh shit.
I could be Ned.
Oh, God. Yeah, but I could be the twins' older sister.
Yeah, you'd just look like them.
Oh, God. Yeah, I can't believe it when I realised that.
That's a shocking revelation. I hadn't even thought about that when I was reading these.
Yeah.
You've made me think now.
And Regina rushes off mortified. And apparently Liz is so upset about this, she doesn't even eat her lunch.
Yeah, apparently it puts her off for lunch. I should have said this earlier, because this has already happened once with Roger. Quite a few times in this book, we get the tried and true Sweet Valley formula of someone being upset and running away.
Of course.
Roger runs upstairs, Regina runs off here.
Yeah. At the Patman's house, for tennis, Olivia's wearing a pair of faded blue track shorts and a baggy t-shirt.
Fine.
And Jessica's borrowed something expensive from Lila. And she's just sat there admiring her own legs.
That's not narcissistic at all.
Olivia's the only one not wearing like proper tennis clothes.
Yeah.
So straight away she feels self-conscious,
Absolutely.
as anybody would, really.
Yeah, and again, this is playing completely into Jess's plan.
They decide to play boys against girls, and Olivia holds the racket like a baseball bat.
Yeah, like Jess is immediately like, this girl's got no idea what she's doing.
She misses Bruce's serve, and then Roger starts telling her how to stand.
Yeah, Roger continually through these games just mansplains how to play tennis to her.
Like, he's trying to help, but he's being really patronising.
Yeah, I also don't think that...
And like, he's drawing attention to it more.
This is not the time to be shouting. You don't, talk to her later. Tell her, oh, we could do some lessons here. I have this court now. We could do lessons later on between the two of us. She misses every shot and she gets all like red and sweaty. Yeah, and Jess starts playing games where she's like, oh, I'll take the hard shots and you just stay back. But then letting shots go through and being like, oh, Olivia, you've got this, so that Olivia will miss stuff. Well, that's in the second half. So, sorry. We get the first half where she misses every shot and Roger just like keeps shouting at her like, this is awful, instructions and tips to help. And she's all red and sweaty as well. Yeah. And I thought, I bet Jessica's like one of these people that doesn't even sweat when she exercises. Pristine. Yeah. You see them at the gym, like full makeup. Yeah. On the treadmill, painting their nails at the same time or something. Yeah. Just nothing. So yeah, at the end of the first game, Olivia tells Jessica, like, you don't seem that rusty. And Jessica's like, yeah, it's funny how it sticks with you. Yeah, it's funny how I'm amazing at this game. And then she tells Jessica, Olivia, her plan. She says she'll take all the hard shots and Olivia can just stand aside. Yeah. So she does in the second game and it goes fine. But then they have a third game. And Olivia says, how many games are we playing? And Jessica's like, oh, only 6. Yeah, Olivia at this point is like exhausted and just like, what's going on? And Jessica suddenly changes strategy in the third game. And then every hard shot, which she was meant to be getting, she just moves out of the way. And she's like, shouts to Olivia that it's hers. Yeah, leaving Olivia to just kind of flail wildly and miss every time. And she's so, like, confused and she ends up falling over onto the hard tarmac and like grazing her knees. She's in tears and Jessica says maybe we should take a break. Roger's face falls and he says, you don't want to stop, do you, Olivia? Aren't you having fun? She's fucking crying. Aren't you having fun, Olivia? What are you doing, Olivia? I thought we were having a good time. She's crying and he's like, you don't want to stop, do you? Yes. Of course she fucking does. You should be asking if she's okay. No, he's just like, we're having fun. I was horrified with Roger at this point. I know, and there were a few moments this book where Roger's lost the plot. And then she says she wants to go home. And he's like... Really? Are you sure? Yeah. You don't want to stay? He keeps trying to get her to stay. Yeah. Like, she's crying and she wants to go home. Yeah. And Jessica makes sure they don't end up alone together so they don't get a chance to make up. Yeah, so she's like, I'll take you. Yeah, she's like, I'll take Olivia home. Yeah. And on the way back in the car, Olivia apologises to Jess for being such a disaster. Yes, she says that it's not Jess's fault that she's a disaster. And Jess does not correct her. No. Jess just leaves it and smiles at her. It's like, wow, you're just going to let that go, are you? You're not going to say, you're not a disaster, don't worry, you're a lovely person, you did your best. No, she just lets it go. She's like, I'm just going to leave her there.
At school, Regina asks Elizabeth if she's heard the rumours about her. And Elizabeth says, yes, but I know they aren't true. Well, you don't really know they aren't true, do you?
Well, and also
they
she did think there was something going on.
Yeah.
She believed it. But apparently now she's never believed it for one moment.
Regina says to Liz, if you come over to my house after school, I'll explain everything.
Yeah.
And Todd has been, of course, like
stalking Regina
and watching all of this. Like, he's probably just been following her around constantly for the last week.
Yeah.
And he goes over after Regina's gone, and he demands to know what they were talking about, because he just wants to help.
Yeah, Liz just says that Regina's going to talk to her later, and that she's worried about Regina. And then they just do this thing that they always do, where they talk to each other and big each other up about how amazing, like, human beings they are.
Yeah, Liz goes on about how sensitive Todd is to care so much about Regina.
He's not
sensitive,
he's
fucking obsessive.
It's disturbing.
And she says he's a boy wonder. And he says, make sure you call me later on and let me know what happens.
Yeah.
And now, but he's like waiting all day now.
Oh, he's probably just outside Regina's house.
Yeah, probably.
With listening
Bugs
devices.
the phone.
Yeah.
So at the Morrows, Liz compliments Regina's pastel-coloured room.
Yes, Regina designed it herself.
And she says that's kind of how this whole thing with Lane Townsend started.
Yeah, and Liz is like, heard that name before, but I just can't place it.
Regina was downtown looking for some fabric for the sofa, and Lane had introduced himself. He told her he ran a modelling agency, and he'd been running a competition to find a cover girl for a special story in Ingenue.
Yeah, I think so. That's as good of a pronunciation as I could do. So
Ingenue. Ingenue magazine, and he thought she was perfect. So she'd been leaving school early to go to the photo shoots, basically.
Yeah, she's got permission from the school for a couple of days, and it's over now. That was only for a little bit.
She didn't want anyone to know. She felt a bit awkward about it.
Yeah,
she's not she's quite a modest person. So she thought they'll just find out when the magazine comes out. Yeah. And Lane is actually happily married.
Yeah. There's surprise, surprise. The massive Sweet Valley High rumor completely false again.
She swears Liz to secrecy, and Liz isn't comfortable keeping it from Todd. But she agrees.
She keeps every secret from Todd. Why is that a problem
just
to her now?
Fucking tell Todd.
Like, suddenly that's an issue for her. She's kept everything from Todd in every book.
I know. Like, if I were Liz, like, if one of my friends had a modelling shoot and didn't want anyone to know, I'd tell you. Yeah. Sorry if any of my friends are listening, but
then it wouldn't go any further than me.
No, exactly.
So it's like, it's fine if you have trust in a relationship.
I know.
Like, if I tell my friend something that was a secret, I'd assume their partner would know.
So would I.
I wouldn't even like.
But Elizabeth always does this.
Yeah, I know.
And then it's never anything that's a big deal, but then Todd thinks it's a big deal because she's not telling him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regina also confides in Liz that her mum used to be a model. And she'd always wanted Regina to follow in her footsteps. Yeah. She'd been taking medication while she was pregnant, and it caused Regina's deafness.
Yeah, or at least they think so. Yeah.
So she'd always thought of modelling as something Regina would never be able to do. But which is a bit weird, because you can model if you're deaf.
Yeah, I don't think that's like in any way of a problem.
So yeah, her mum was thrilled.
Yeah, she's really happy that she's going to be able to be in this magazine. And of course Liz is like, this is amazing, I'm so happy for you.
And then when she gets home, she calls Todd, and she's like, yeah, I can't tell you.
Yeah, she calls Todd to tell Todd that she can't talk to Todd.
And Todd's all moody and sulky about it.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know about Regina's life.
Yeah, I need to know everything about Regina.
And then at the Oracle office, Olivia asks Elizabeth if she thinks that she dresses like a freak. Yeah. And this is the outfit that is a miss for me.
Yeah, it's too far.
She was wearing oversized army pants, sandals, and a bright yellow t-shirt with the sleeves rolled up, with a bandana tied around her head.
I mean, that is kind of
ridiculous. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, but right now the answer is yes, you do dress like a freak. Olivia.
Liz could have been like, today? Yes.
Liz tells her she looks fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking liar.
Suck up.
And then Jessica bursts in, and she bursts into the office, and she's like, "Oh my god, what's all this paper?"
Yeah.
It's a newspaper office.
Yeah, she tells Liz that she's made $55 exactly from selling cookies. So the t-shirts
didn't work out.
Yeah. But yeah, she immediately criticizes the Oracle, the state of the Oracle.
Yeah. And she's shocked to find paper there.
In a newspaper
office.
Yeah.
She's there to pick up Olivia because she's going to help Olivia hem her dress.
Yeah, I was like, does Jessica know anything about hemming a dress?
No. And this is why Liz is shocked.
Yeah.
Because Jessica never sews.
No.
But she thinks, well, I've poked my nose into other people's business enough lately.
You have.
So I'm just going to leave it. It's a rare first for her to think
that's
that.
a first as well. You're absolutely right.
And the thing is, as well, there is actually a problem here. She should poke her nose in.
This is the one thing that she should.
Yeah.
Because it's clear to everyone that Jess has ulterior motives here.
And she's going to hurt
obviously.
Olivia.
Yeah.
Whereas Regina, that's something like, look, this is none of your business.
Yeah, Regina is just like an innocent girl that you have nothing to do with and barely know.
At Olivia's house, Jessica looks at the dress and she says, is that cotton?
Oh my god.
Olivia suddenly thinks the dress doesn't seem so special anymore.
It's a dress that she's been making and presumably spending a lot of time making, you know?
Yeah.
She's been working on it for ages.
It's pale lilac with tiny white flowers on. And Jessica thinks only Olivia would wear something like that to a country club. She tells Olivia it's original and very simple.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised she didn't say it was interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, she says that, you know, it's fine, but she needs to think about her man.
Olivia says, well, she hates all those fancy dresses you find in stores and she wanted it to be simple.
Yeah.
And she goes and puts it on, and when Jess sees it on, she sighs. And she reminds Olivia that everyone's going to be looking at them, and she has to think about Roger.
No.
And then she tells Olivia this story about how Mrs. Patman made one of Bruce's dates cry once because she didn't know how to eat lobster. How do you eat lobster?
Not, I don't know, actually. So it's a fair question. I'm sure there is like a method. I think I've eaten lobster once in my life. So yeah, I don't know.
Just put it in your mouth and chew it.
I guess.
And then Jessica says, you don't want everyone to think you just threw any old thing on.
Yeah,
I'm insulting.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Roger would know that she's made this dress specially. Like,
yeah.
He knows that she makes stuff like this.
And Olivia's quite upset, and she says, I'm tired. I think we need to call it a night so I can do some homework.
Yeah.
And Jessica says, this should be more important than homework. It's the biggest night of Roger's life. Calm down.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a bad enough night for him as it is.
Just a crap party like a Sweet Valley Country Club.
Yeah.
And Olivia thinks she can't go to the party. She'll make a fool of herself and she'll make a fool of Roger. And then she thinks maybe they shouldn't even be a couple anymore.
Yeah, she thinks that, Roger's life is the Patman way of life now. And Olivia doesn't have it in her to be in that kind of life. It's not for her.
At the Patman's mansion, Mrs. Patman has summoned Roger again for another little chat. She tells him to take a seat as it feels so awkward when he's lurching.
Yeah, because I'm stood up.
No, it feels awkward because of you.
Yeah.
Because you're cold and weird.
Yeah, she's awful.
She starts asking about his hobbies, and when he mentions running, she starts dabbing her forehead with a hanky.
I know, it's like it distresses her so much.
Yeah,
she's
like,
sweating.
Oh gosh, I need my hanky. And she says, running's not a very social sport.
Actually, it can be. I mean, I wouldn't run.
Yeah, there's running clubs around.
It happens all the time.
Here.
People run around talking to each other all the time.
He says it gives him time on his own to think. And she says, well, what do you think about when you're all hot and sweaty? and he says he thinks about medicine. She looks appalled.
Yeah, he says that he's thinking he wants to be a doctor one day.
Yeah.
And he thinks, surely she can't have an issue with this. Surely not.
But she does. She says that's such a messy profession.
Is it?
I guess it depends what you do.
Yeah. I was like, I guess doctors probably do some surgery every now and again. But I thought, like, she might be confusing a doctor with a surgeon.
And she says Bruce wants to go into his father's business.
Great.
Like, is she suggesting that a canning factory is better than being a doctor?
It's a more noble profession.
Yeah, like
than
what would you be more
people.
proud to say? I work in a canning factory, or I'm a doctor.
Not even I work in a canning factory. I own a canning factory where people work for like less than minimum wage.
Yeah, I bet they're treated like slaves at that
God,
canning
I imagine
factory.
they were.
What do they can?
That I don't think they've ever said what they can.
Clams.
Oh,
I bet it's clams.
It's the bloody clams.
For the Dairy Burger.
The Dairy Burger
hot
clams.
clam special.
Oh. So yeah, you'd think like you can't get a more noble profession, can you, than doctor? Really?
No.
Like and
firefighter.
Don't people study like 20 years of their life to get into medicine and doctory? Like that's a huge thing.
And then she asks about Olivia, and she calls her that little friend again.
It's so patronising.
She keeps calling her that, and it really irritates me. And says she's a bit awkward, isn't she? And Roger says, well, yeah, I'm taking her to the party. And she suggests that Bruce set him up with some lovely ladies from the local college.
Yeah, now no kidding. She literally suggests here that Roger just borrows one of Bruce's girls.
Yeah.
So Bruce has got loads of these girls. Just use one of them.
She says Bruce is so sure of himself in situations like this. And she actually seems proud that her teenage son is a player who dates college girls.
Yeah. Yeah, she just loves Bruce. Like, Bruce can do no wrong.
Like, oh, my son's a man whore.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so amazing. It's great.
Brilliant.
And Roger doesn't want to make her unhappy, so he says, yeah, I'll think about it. Should have said no.
She definitely should have said no.
I've got a girlfriend, and even if I didn't, I don't want to borrow a college girl from Bruce.
And also, shock horror, it's not the 1950s. She might not be interested.
Yeah.
Let's just assume that these girls are just instantly going to be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's awful.
And then Henry comes in to the rescue,
Thank
Henry
God.
Patman, and he asks Roger to help him with something in the garage.
Yeah.
And in the garage, they have a little pep talk.
Yeah,
a little heart to heart.
He's quite nice, is Henry, here.
Yeah, he says how proud he is to have Roger in the family.
He says that their family needs someone like him, which suggests to me that Henry knows that
Henry's
his
sick of
son
their
is
shit.
an absolute shit.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, we need someone nice.
And then Roger thinks he's determined to make the family proud, no matter what.
Yeah, because Bruce taunts him, like saying, oh, it's good that they got you down here working. And Roger is like, yeah, basically, he's resolved. He's not going to take any more from Bruce. He's going to become a true Patman no matter what he has to give up. He's like willing to give up Olivia now at this point to be a Patman.
We cut to the school cafeteria. Regina tells Liz that her photo proofs are ready and she's going to go and see them later.
Yeah.
Lila overhears her telling Liz, but she only overhears the last part of this.
She overhears 2:30. They're going to meet at 2:30.
She overhears Regina say she's getting picked up by Lane at 2:30.
Yeah.
And then she bloody decides to stalk her as well.
Yes.
Everyone's just stalking Regina.
So Lila, in her green Triumph, is it green Triumph?
Yeah, lime green Triumph.
That sounds
She's not really
awesome.
she's not gonna blend in though, is she?
No, it's not inconspicuous, is it?
Like Regina would notice straight away.
You'd think so. She follows the Ferrari and is surprised when they head downtown, as she expected them to go somewhere more secluded, and I immediately thought she was expecting them to go to Miller's
They
Point.
could start banging in the car.
She thought they were going to Miller's Point, I'm sure.
And then she sees him going to an office building.
Yeah.
And instead of just stopping there, she
sneaks
actually
in.
like goes inside the office building.
She goes in and she watches the lift numbers go up, noticing where it stops. She's like properly like, I'm going to follow them. Like they could just be like in a little hallway and then she just turn up and she'd be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, and is there no like security at the door of
Apparently
this
not.
office, or you don't need a pass to get in
just
or anything.
Rock up. It's fine.
It's just she just walks in to this like expensive office building.
Yeah.
And yeah, she watches them get off at the 6th floor, and then she gets the lift back down and gets it back up to the 6th floor. On the 6th floor, she reads the plaque on the door, Lane Townsend Modelling Agency.
And then she thinks, oh, that's why Regina's here, and leaves?
Nope.
No, she doesn't.
She wonders what on earth Regina's doing there. Well, what the fuck do you think she's doing there?
It's like pretty obvious at this point.
But the receptionist spots her and asks if she's coming about the competition. And she lies and says, yeah, I have, yeah. I don't know why.
I'm really confused by this entire thing. But we'll get to it a bit later.
Because then the receptionist just offers her an appointment with Lane on Friday afternoon.
But, so, very, very briefly, to skip ahead one bit, we later discover this competition ended 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know.
Why is this receptionist even booking this meeting?
know.
It's bizarre. It's like she's just like, oh, I'll just fuck with this girl. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. A guy comes out then and he says to the receptionist that Regina looks stunning on the ingenue proofs.
Yeah.
Ingenue, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, Lila's furious, and she tells herself that she'll change Lane's mind on Friday.
Yeah, she's going to find a way to get Regina out of the magazine. Like, that's like the worst. She's so horrible.
I know.
Like, just let her have it. Like,
and
why?
She just thinks that Lane will take one look at her and be like, oh, we'll just discard all this work we've done.
And it doesn't even come across in the book like Lila really wants to be on the magazine cover. She just
doesn't
wants
want Regina to be there.
She'll just do anything to get rid of Regina, like for Regina to be miserable, basically.
Yeah. So she accepts the appointment on Friday.
Yeah.
And she thinks I'll change his mind.
Mm-hmm.
We go to the school lawn. Olivia's telling Roger that she can't go to the party because she doesn't feel comfortable around the Patmans.
Yeah, she's basically says, like, I felt awkward since the start. And Roger's just like, didn't you like all those times you came over? And it's like, she's literally left in tears every time she's
He
visited.
said, oh, I thought you had a good time when you visited. It's like, well, the first time she nearly drowned and left in tears. And the second time she fell over, cut her knees, and again left in tears.
Like, at what point did you think she was having a great time?
I guess he's just the most idiotic boyfriend ever.
Yeah, he seems to be.
He's the shittest boyfriend ever.
And that is saying something in Sweet Valley.
I know. And she says, look, the Patmans obviously don't think that I'm suitable for you. And then he accuses her of not giving them a chance. But he knows they don't think...
Not giving them a chance.
He knows they don't think she's suitable because Mrs. Patman has told him.
Yeah, she's outright said to him.
But he's got no, like, solidarity with her or
no
support. He just lies and is like, oh, what are you talking about? And he says,
It's basically gaslighting.
I know, yeah.
Gaslighting happens a lot in these books.
Oh, I know. And he says, you have to come because I've already told them that you're coming. And this makes her mad because she thinks all he cares about is what they think and that he's going to look stupid if she doesn't come.
It's hard to...
Not like, oh, I want you to come.
It's hard to disagree with her logic here.
Definitely.
Like, the way he's behaving and the way he has behaved, like, yeah, 100%.
Like, you could say, you have to come because I really want you there. But he doesn't. He says, you have to come because I've
said
told
you'll be there,
yeah.
and it'll be embarrassing to me if you don't come.
Yeah. But he gets mad at that as well.
Yeah.
Because she says, oh, you only care about what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets mad at her then, and he says, well, maybe we should stop seeing each other if it's too much to ask for you to put up with my family. And she's like, well, you're right. Maybe you should find someone more suited to your new fancy life.
Yeah.
And she runs off.
Again, running away. And she thinks to herself, she never wants to be around Roger, Bruce, or Jessica ever again. And she feels sadder than she ever has in her entire life. I thought it was a bit weird that she wanted to get rid of Jessica, because at this point she thinks Jessica's quite nice. She doesn't know that Jessica's awful, but she's like, and Jessica as well.
Yeah, I didn't understand why she included Jessica in that.
It was a bit weird. I was like, okay.
We go to the Wakefields pool now, and Elizabeth tells Jess that she ran into Olivia downtown, and apparently she looked terrible.
I love this bit. Jess immediately assumes that it's about what she was wearing.
Yeah. And Liz is like, no, not that. she looked like she hadn't slept or eaten for days. And Liz says they ended up going for a coffee together, and Olivia told her that she'd broken up with Roger.
Yeah.
And Jess says, oh my God, I must go over and comfort Olivia.
Yeah, and Liz is like, oh, my sister's such an angel
so
now.
Nice.
She's so lovely.
But really, she just heads straight over to the Patmans.
Yeah, she basically goes in and phones like Roger immediately. Is like, and now can I come over? Can I come over and speak to you for a minute?
And then she tells Roger how sorry she is to hear what happened. But she said, well, it was inevitable. You've got so much more outgoing lately, and Olivia's so shy.
Yeah. And it gets even worse.
Yeah, then she tells this outright lie. She says, Olivia told me that she's jealous of your wealth, and her plan was to stand you up and not show up to the party to make a fool out of you.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally just a lie.
It's an awful lie, yeah.
It's not even based on anything, it's just a lie.
And then she's like, oh, Roger gets angry and he's like, as if I couldn't just find someone else to go with if she did that to me. And Jess is like, well, I told her you could find someone to go with if that was the case. And then, of course, she has to let slip that she also doesn't have a date.
Yeah, and then she makes him think that he's come up with the idea that maybe they could go together.
Yeah.
And she pretends to be all doubtful and all like, oh, what about Olivia's feelings? I wouldn't want to hurt her. And Roger's like, forget Olivia.
Yeah, forget Olivia. Let's do this.
And she agrees.
Bye, Neil.
Yeah, what about Neil? And then when she leaves, Roger tells Mrs. Patman, that he's going with Jessica, and she's thrilled.
She is absolutely delighted.
She asks what happened to his little friend again.
So patronising.
Drink every time they say little friend.
Yeah, yeah.
And he says, well, we had a fight. And she says, don't worry, you and Jessica will make a beautiful couple.
Yeah, and
but
Roger...
He thinks he doesn't want to be a beautiful couple. He wants Olivia.
Yeah, well, maybe you should treat her better.
I
mean,
maybe,
this is kind of his own doing at this point.
I know.
It's like he's feeling sad.
Her.
But it's like you're feeling sad because of your actions. Like, it's your own fault.
So on Friday, Lila is at the Lane Townsend agency. She's wearing so much makeup that her face is stiff. But she was sure she looked glamorous. And then she scornfully thought to herself, Regina doesn't even wear any makeup.
It's like she's naturally beautiful.
Yeah, what an insult. That's not an insult.
I know, yeah. Yeah, saying that someone's beautiful without any makeup is not an insult.
Well, you're there with a stiff face.
Yeah.
That you can barely move because you needed so much makeup. And she's wearing an expensive cream pair of linen trousers, high heels, and a turquoise silk blouse with a bow.
Nice.
And again, it sounds like she's going to work.
It does, yeah.
She sounds like the receptionist at the modelling agency or something.
It's a kid trying to act grown up.
She's like a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
A silk blouse with a bow on it.
It is. It's like she's doing dress up as an adult.
Yeah. She takes a seat in Lane's office, and he's sat behind the desk smoking a pipe, which made me laugh.
Yeah, yeah. It's.
And he explains to her that the competition is over.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Why didn't he fucking call her and say, sorry, you don't need to come down, like the competition was over 2 weeks ago?
Why did the receptionist book it?
I know.
I don't know why any of this happened.
And then he tells her all about discovering Regina. He says she's perfect, beautiful, and absolutely unspoiled as far as appearance goes. It's a bit off.
Yeah.
As far as appearance goes, but she's obviously spoiled because she's deaf.
She does have her issues.
Yeah. He says she's managed to overcome a handicap and live a normal life.
Basically, they think it's great publicity for their magazine that she's handicapped and has overcome it.
And they're going to run a feature story all about her.
They're going to exploit the fuck out of her. Yeah. Now, he's kind of to be expected. He's pretty awful about the way he talks about women in this entire part.
Yeah.
But I love the outcome of this.
I know.
It's just like, I was reading it and I was like...
I think everybody, all Sweet Valley fans, know the outcome of this conversation.
Oh, really? Is this like a big thing?
Yeah, it's a big thing.
It's hilarious.
I've seen memes about this.
I was like, oh God, this guy's awful. And then it got to the end and I was like, that was brilliant.
So...
I didn't realise this was a big thing.
This is a big thing, yeah.
Oh my God.
So Lila meanly thinks that Lane must be in love with Regina.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
And then he says, my wife's the one that spotted her. And then, do you want to say what he says then?
No, you go for it. I didn't realise this was the thing. This is
So,
brilliant.
He says, you're a pretty girl, but you don't have the right facial structure to be a model. You wouldn't like how flat your face would look in photos. She's furious.
Is fuming that he said she's got a flat face.
She mutters to herself, flat face indeed. And the receptionist's like, have a nice day. And she's like, I'll have a horrible day.
With my flat face. Yeah, wow, I didn't know this was a thing. That's brilliant.
Yeah, somebody on Twitter posted ages ago, like, they'd, like, got a stingray. I don't know who it was. It might be someone that's listening.
They put it on the dress.
And they'd got a stingray and they photoshopped, like, I don't know how they done it, like, photoshopped, like, Lila's face.
In the stingray.
Into the stingray. So it's sort of, like, all flat. It's really funny.
It's like, Cassandra from Doctor Who.
Oh, please make a Photoshop of Lila's face in Cassandra.
I'll do it after this podcast.
Oh, you need to. Okay. That's going to be the best thing ever. I'm really excited. And yeah, she rushes home furious. So we get to Saturday, the day of the party.
Mm-hmm.
Roger's in his uncle's wardrobe looking for cufflinks. When Mrs. Patman comes in...
Now, this wardrobe is, like, cavernous.
Yeah, it sounds more like a room.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Patman comes in. She doesn't realise Roger's there. So she starts talking to Mrs. Ferguson on the phone. And he freezes, worried she'll be angry at him for being in there, even though apparently, like Mr. Patman had said, he could go in there.
Yeah.
So he decides to just hide in the wardrobe.
Yeah.
He would have been better off just you know,
like,
getting out. Yeah.
Well, actually, he wouldn't have been. His fate would have it. But,
yeah.
you know.
She starts talking about the party, and he can hear, like, one side of the conversation.
But it's enough.
Yeah. She says, oh no, thank heavens he's through with her. She was dreadful. And he realises that she's talking about Olivia.
Of course.
And then she says, yes, he's going with Jessica, that pretty blonde from the barbecue. I should be grateful to her, really. And then she goes on to explain about the chat they had.
Yeah, and then basically she got Jessica to try and break them up. And, yeah.
And she says, yes, they're learning younger all the time. Ha ha ha.
Ha ha.
And Roger realises what's happened.
Yeah.
His first thought is that he just won't go to the party at all. But then he comes out with a revenge plan.
Mm-hmm. So he phones Jessica. And he says, can I come round for a minute? Which is great, because that's exactly what she did to him.
Yeah. And he heads over, and he says he wants to see her and Elizabeth together.
Yeah.
And he tells them he can't go to the party with Jessica while Olivia's sat at home alone. He feels really bad, and he's made a terrible mistake. Obviously, Elizabeth wants to help with this. She's like, oh, something else for me to stick my nose into.
Yeah.
And Roger suggests all three of them go over to Olivia's house to change her mind.
Yeah.
Especially as she's gotten so close to Jess lately. Jess should definitely go.
Yeah, but Jess can tell. The book's clear that Jessica can see in Roger's eyes that he knows more than he's letting on. Like, he obviously knows what's going on.
And obviously as well, she doesn't want to help them get back together.
No.
She wants him.
Yeah.
And she starts making excuses, and Elizabeth realises that Jess has been up to something all along.
No shit.
Penny drops, finally.
Maybe if she wasn't spending so much time stalking Regina, she would have worked this out.
And then Jessica gets away with it and doesn't go. So Roger and Liz head off in the car.
Yes.
But Jess isn't that bothered. She just calls Neil and she tells him,
"Hi, Neil."
Yeah, she says it's his lucky day. He is allowed to be her date now for the party.
just awful.
But we'd been told he was one of the most sought after guys at school.
I guess he's
Why
just
has he
obsessed
not already
with
got
Jess
a date?
now,
Like, he's just sitting around dateless.
Just sat in a room waiting for the phone to ring.
Sat in a sports car, polishing his car.
With a massive, 80s mobile phone, and he's just waiting for Jess to ring it.
Yeah. But yeah, so Jessica's on with Neil again.
Yep.
So on the way to Olivia's, Roger tells Liz the whole story. And they get to Olivia's house. Mrs. Davison asks them in, and they sit in the garden. Olivia comes out. She looks prettier than ever in a man's cotton shirt belted over a floral skirt, and her hair held back with a silver and gold rope. There's so much frizz. They literally need a rope to contain it. A normal hair tie will not do. Literally need a rope.
It's like a mooring rope. It's like huge rope.
And they explain everything that's happened to her, and Roger apologises. But he says it wasn't all Jess's fault. It was partly his fault as well for being so insecure.
I was glad that at least he took some responsibility.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think he was gonna.
But then Olivia starts saying it's her fault as well.
I know.
Like, no, fucking wasn't your fault.
Absolutely none of this was your fault, Olivia.
And Jessica's played you. Roger's treated you like shit.
And he's just told you all of this, and she's still like, no, it was partly my fault. Not at all. Nothing was your fault here.
And he begs her to come to the party, and he says he wants to show everybody that he loves her. Mm-hmm. Finally, like, he's being all right now.
Yeah, there was a moment though, Roger. You almost lost me.
And she's reluctant to go. But
Understandably.
she agrees. Like, I wouldn't fucking go.
That's the thing. At this point, I'd be like, I'm still like, we'll get back together, but I'm still not going.
Yeah.
Like, and that's been made such a big deal now. Like, I can't go.
Even if I got back together with Roger, I would not want to go to that house with that family now.
No, I've got some self-respect, so no, I'm not going.
But yeah, I think they should just both go to the Dairy Burger instead.
I was thinking that. I thought that was going to be the end of this book.
And they should not bother telling, like, the Patmans. I do feel sorry for Henry, but they should not bother telling the Patmans.
I think Henry would be fine with it, though. Henry would just be like, oh, yeah,
just take it, go with the flow, and be like, oh, well, let's just party.
He's like, well, my wife is a bitch, so it's probably her fault.
I mean, they should leave the Patmans looking stupid.
Yeah.
Throwing a welcome party for him. He
and they kind of, like, they upset... like Mrs. Ferguson and Mrs. Patman, but not as much as if they just no-showed and went to the dairy or
that would have
something.
been great.
They should have just had a drink in Kelly's.
Yeah. So Elizabeth and Roger leave Olivia to get ready, and back at home, Elizabeth confronts Jess about her bad behaviour.
She is fuming. But of course Jessica manages... Yeah, and Jess manages to sidestep almost immediately.
She's holding the Regina magazine. And she's like, oh, look at this. Regina's on the cover of this magazine. But Liz still demands an explanation.
Yeah.
And Jess says, well, I was only trying to help. How was I supposed to know Olivia was insecure?
Now, Liz has been told the entire plan. Liz has been told that Mrs. Patman specifically spoke to Jessica and told her to break them up. She knows this. But somehow she just kind of accepts her sister's excuse here, even though it makes no sense.
Well, she accepts it because Jessica starts sucking her cheeks in and asking Liz if she could be a cover girl. And then Liz starts laughing and says, well, I can't stay mad at you.
Brilliant.
It's like...
Brilliant.
That just made her...
Oh, that just makes it fine then.
That makes it okay. You told her an unfunny joke. Ha.
You're a horrible human being, but you made an unfunny joke. Yeah. All is forgiven.
All is forgiven. And Jessica's, at the party, Jessica's forced Neil to wait outside the country club with her.
Yeah.
Just so she can arrive late and make an entrance.
Yeah, just turn up late.
Yeah.
Don't turn up early and wait outside. Surely that makes you look way more sad that you just stood outside waiting to go in.
Yeah, and he sounds like a fucking chump. He just stands there, like, doing what she says.
Yeah. Now, there is a big lingering question coming out of this book.
Okay.
Because finally... Neil and Jessica decide to go in. It's time for Jessica's big arrival. And we're told that, quote, a live band is playing.
Oh, wow. The droids aren't good enough for the country club.
Right. But who is it?
I don't know.
It doesn't say. We don't know who this band is. Who are this band? Do you think it's like a classical band?
It's some snotty band that Mrs. Patman wanted.
Yeah, it's not that surfer band or anyone like that. It'll be like classical music.
It says it's a live jazz quartet.
Oh, Lord.
So, yeah. Mrs. Patman would not like the droids.
She would look down on Dana. Imagine if she met
she'd
Dana.
Be disgusted. And Roger tells Jess he's surprised that she wasn't too tired to come after all of the help she's been giving Olivia.
I know, Roger was quite good here. I quite like that. He's like, I know, I know.
Elizabeth and Todd start slow dancing, and Todd's voice goes all husky, so we know that room for some romance.
Oh, yeah.
And Todd's voice goes husky. But he's hurt that she didn't tell him about Regina.
They make a really big deal out of this.
Fucking drop it, Todd.
They make a really big deal out of this. And she's like, oh, I hope you're not too mad at me. I thought you weren't even going to give me a lift here. It's like, it was like a tiny thing. It was like not even like... It's like, fine, you can't tell me. All right.
I know.
Cool.
And he says he is pissed off, but he's pleased that she's such a good friend to keep her promises. And that's one of the things he loves about her.
Uh-huh.
And Olivia and Roger are stood in a receiving line. What the fuck? It's not a wedding.
No.
This is really formal, this party.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
And then the Fergusons get to them.
It sounds so formal that I'm surprised there's even dancing.
I know.
Sounds like they should all be seated having a meal or something.
It sounds crap.
It sounds awful, yeah.
But
I bet Olivia's glad she went now.
Yeah. And the Fergusons come to the receiving line and reach Roger and Olivia. And Mrs. Ferguson exclaims that she thought the pretty blonde girl was going to be Roger's date.
Yeah, and Roger...
So rude.
Oh, she's awful.
And Roger says there was a misunderstanding, but he's happy to introduce his girlfriend, Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Ferguson looks at her like she's an actual piece of shit. And apparently she makes a high-pitched nasal noise.
Yeah.
What kind of noise is that?
I don't know. I'm assuming she kind of like snorts or something and it's kind of high-pitched. I don't know.
And then Mrs. Patman pulls Roger aside and she tells him his behaviour is inexcusable.
How dare you be here with your girlfriend?
How dare you introduce your girlfriend, yeah. But then Henry comes over. I love that.
Henry, apart from the fact that he has servants and probably doesn't pay his workers well enough, Henry's quite a nice guy here.
Yeah. Henry tells Mrs. Patman that Roger did an admirable job of dealing with that old cow. Like, he literally calls her an old cow.
Yeah.
And he says she was the rude one. And it takes more than a party to welcome Roger. And where he's welcome, so are his friends.
Aw, thanks, Henry.
Mrs. Patman's just looking
She's
down
just
at the floor.
Like fuming on the dance floor.
And Roger says that he has felt intimidated, but now he's feeling more like himself.
Yeah.
And he's happy to be a part of their family.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Patman stiffly storms off.
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to be really awkward. He still has to live with her. I guess it's a big house, though.
Yeah, Henry will put her in her place.
Yeah.
Give her a few light slaps.
Oh, God.
And then after she's gone, Mr. Patman tells Roger that she's very proud of him.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's very proud of him.
Yeah.
And that he thinks Olivia's terrific.
Yeah. She is terrific.
Meanwhile, Lila, Cara, Enid and Caroline...
weird combination of people.
Yeah. They're in...
Sometimes these friends, they don't really get on, but then every now and again...
They just hang out.
It's like, okay.
Well, they're all in the lounge, crowding around the magazine and saying how great Regina looks.
Mm-hmm.
And Caroline's like, yeah, Lila was wrong. She's not having an affair. Lane's married.
Yeah.
And then Regina comes in and everyone swarms around her like she's famous.
Even though Caroline's the one that would have spread these rumours anyway. Because it's always Caroline that spreads the rumours.
Yeah. It's like, come on, Caroline, you were in...
Maybe she's like, oh, my contacts were wrong. My contacts were wrong. It's not me. I was just reporting what I heard.
Yeah. And then when everyone swarms around Regina, Lila's really pissed off.
Yeah.
She changes the subject to Caroline's pen pal.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline says she got a letter from him that day, and she pulls it out of her bag. Why? Who carries around letters to a party in their bag?
Well, yeah. I guess we'll find out soon.
She's just like, oh, here's this letter, and she asks if they want to hear it, and of course they do.
Of course we do.
The letter says, "How I wish I could be with you tonight at the dance. But Caroline, as long as you know I love you, everything will be all right. You asked me the other day how much I loved you, Caroline. It's pretty hard to measure how I feel. Let me put it this way. I love you to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. And if you'll be mine, nothing shall ever keep us apart. I'll love you even more after our deaths."
Is Adam the Prince of Santadora?
Yeah. Oh my God.
What is he saying? This is not how normal teenagers write.
Cara says he sounds morbid. And she says, why is he going to love you more when you're dead?
That's a legitimate question.
Yeah, fair question. And Lila says, what's all this about nothing keeping you apart, as it clearly has tonight? Like, nothing keeps you apart apart from 2 hours. 2 hour drive, that's too much.
Too much.
And Caroline says, he meant our souls. And she tells them he might be visiting next weekend. Cara laughs that maybe his soul can float over from Cold Springs, and they all waltz off giggling.
Oh.
And Caroline feels sad, and she thinks to herself that the week ahead won't be easy. And then we end with, what is Caroline afraid of? Find out in Sweet Valley High number 17, Love Letters.
Oh, well, I guess we'll find out what's going on there. Yeah, next time on... Well, no, not next time on Kelly's.
No, we won't find out in 2 weeks.
We will not
I nearly forgot that
find
as
out
well.
in 2 weeks, because it is spooky season.
Yeah, in 2 weeks it's our Halloween special, and we're doing the super thriller Double Jeopardy.
Yes.
And I'm really excited.
We've got a super chiller for Casey's and a super thriller for Kelly's. So,
so if you missed it, next Monday will be Casey's Ice Cream Parlour, and we will be doing the super chiller, The Ghost in the Graveyard.
Yes.
Which I've never read.
No, I'm excited.
So I'm happy about that. And then 2 weeks' time we'll be doing Double Jeopardy, which I have read and I love.
I can't wait. I cannot wait.
I think you're going to love super thrillers.
This was, by far, our longest episode of Kelly's Roadhouse.
Definitely.
It is. I'm looking at the time now. It's a long one. But these are extra long books.
Yeah. Are we going to beat it next week?
The super chiller and the super thrillers. So you could have a bumper episode for the next 2 weeks of Casey's and Kelly's. It's going to be great. I'm excited. This book, though. This book had everything. This was great.
Very detailed.
Like, every page there was just notes to make. It was great.
On our last episode, which I've forgotten what it was, Promises,
yeah.
Yeah, Waterwell pointed out it wasn't Elizabeth on the cover standing with Betsy, it was Jessica.
How does she know these things?
I know.
How do you know, Sarah? How do you know?
So, yeah.
I like that she's such a big Sweet Valley High fan. She can tell which twin it is just by looking at them. Like,
I thought I could, to be honest, but clearly not.
No, who knows?
Yeah, on our Instagram all month we are posting a spooky Sweet Valley High or Sweet Valley Twins or Kids or University, a spooky Sweet Valley cover every single day of the month.
Yeah, so check that out. That's at Kelly's Roadhouse.
Some of them aren't that spooky. I'm stretching it a bit, but it's books I own because I'm not taking any photos like from the internet.
No, we're doing from your collection.
And it's annoying because a lot of my thrillers, like The Evil Twin and
covers.
Murder in Paradise, I've got the crap British covers, which is just a ribbon and some random objects around the ribbon that never seem to make any sense or have anything to do with the book.
Yeah, it's not great, these designs we have over here.
But yeah, I'm posting the spookiest covers I've got. As we get towards the end of the month, I might have to start posting some of the ribbon covers.
Yeah, we may have
which
to.
I won't be happy about, but I'm trying my best. I'm hunting for I counted like Hostage as a spooky cover, even though it's not really.
I think they are. Well, they're horror themed, aren't they?
Yeah. So yeah, I want to see some spooky covers. Follow us on Instagram at Kelly's Roadhouse.
And if you want to talk about this episode or any episode of Casey's or Kelly's, come join us on Instagram at Kelly's Roadhouse or on Facebook, also Kelly's Roadhouse.
Yeah, I think we're Kelly's Roadhouse Podcast on Facebook, but you search us and you'll find us.
Yeah, and leave us comments. We love your comments, so keep them coming in.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time here for Double Jeopardy.
Yes, spooky.
/ in a week's time if you want some Sweet Valley Twins. Ghost in the Graveyard.
Ghost in the Graveyard.
Thanks for listening.
Catch you later.
Bye.